Hey there. Welcome to another fabulous edition of Vince. Great to have you with us on a Thursday. Always so nice to chat with you, the best damn audience in media. We've got a lot to get to today. I want to talk about election rigging back in 2020 and the efforts to, for the Chinese to print a bunch of fake IDs in order to rig our election here in the United States of America. The FBI this past week revealing all of the details here. Kash Patel saying, you know what America needs to know about? This rigging scheme. So he released all of that data. We're going to get into it with some detail today with HANS VON SPAKOVSKY, who has a great name, but also, more importantly for our purposes, the guy's an elections expert. He's been all over all of these issues. He's going to get into the nitty gritty here, what this all means and what we can do with it going forward. So that's a huge story. The other thing, the president of the United States putting up a couple of gigantic car dealership size American flagpoles on either side of the White House at his own expense this week. We'll explore that. We've got Pete Hegseth going in for some hilarious testimony before the United States Senate. And of course, the looming story of the war in Iran, Israel versus Iran. And does the United States get involved? The president's got some updates on all of that, which means we have some updates on all of that. We'll get into it here on this program. Great to have you with us, as always. First, got to thank the sponsors of this great program. If there's something that all of us can believe in, it's hard work, self-reliance, and showing up for the people who count on us. But a while back, I started to feel like, man, I'm kind of hitting a wall. I'm getting terrible sleep. I've got these long days, terrible sleep, and then I'm dragging myself through the next day. What? Why? Can I fix it? Well, yes, I can. I knew I had to find something to help me. And that's where I found Beam's Dream Powder. Now, Beam is proudly founded in America, run by people who share our values. Hard work, integrity, and delivering results. It's a nighttime blend that's packed with science-backed ingredients shown to improve sleep so you can wake up refreshed and ready to take on each new day. Dream is made with a powerful blend of all natural ingredients that include reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, melatonin. And here's the deal. Beam is giving you the ultimate Patriot discount of up to 40% off. So you can try their best-selling Dream Powder and get up to 40% off for a very limited time. What you have to do is go to shopbeam.com. Shopbeam.com/Vince Show and use the code Vince Show at checkout. That's BEAM.com/Vince Show and use the code Vince Show for up to 40% off. Here we go. All right, let's start with the fun news and the generosity of the president of the United States, a guy who makes no money being the president, in fact, just loses money by being the president, which I think is a sign of his decency and certainly of his commitment to our country. And that brings us to the installation yesterday of two gigantic American flags right there on the north and south lawn of the White House. I love that the president did this. I'm going to start with cut 10 here. It's just a video of the flags going up at the White House. Take a look at these things. And all of the proper reverence being paid. They get these 100-foot flagpoles assembled. Each of them cost the president personally $50,000 to install them. They get the construction crew out there yesterday. They raise that pole, and then, of course, they're raising that flag. And the flag etiquette here is crystal clear. Keep that flag off the ground. Don't let it touch the ground. So they got a lot of people out there supporting this gigantic flag as they put this thing up. And then they draw it up that pole. There it goes. And you got a great group of people out there. The president of the United States, he brought out the whole family. I saw Ivanka Trump and a bunch of the Trump family members, people you don't see quite as often these days, especially though that not all of them are in the White House like Ivanka used to be. But there they are, celebrating as this American flag goes up, a clear and patriotic sign of how great this country is, coming to us on the week that we mark Flag Day. We just came out of that this past Saturday, and the birthday of the President of the United States. So how's that for a birthday gift? President Trump giving one back to the rest of the country, and that, of course, comes to us just a few weeks away from Independence Day. Wonderful. Wonderful stuff. So that American flag goes up, and it's going to last there for a very long time. The only thing I'm worried about, I'll be honest, is if the left ever gets control of the White House again, what are they going to put up on that thing? They love running the worst and craziest possible things up a flagpole. That's a really big thing for the left. So that makes me a little nervous, but I'll take the risk here because I just think getting that American flag up as a visible symbol of how cool and impressive the White House is and how great our country is, I'll take it. Especially as a guy who, many years ago, working at the Daily Caller, which was our offices were just right next to the White House at the time that I was working in the office each and every day. And I would be able sometimes to walk to lunch. I'd walk through Farragut Square and then walk through Lafayette Square, which is right in front of the White House. Lafayette, of course, is remember when the White House was under siege and the Secret Service had to move President Trump to the bunker because the left was trying to kill him? Yeah, that was all in Lafayette Square. That was happening. Normally, when the left isn't barnstorming it and trying to destroy everything, it's a lovely place to go. You just walk through there, great park. It's got great park benches. You can get right up close near the White House. You can great visuals there. Take pictures with your family. It's awesome. And I had the privilege to be able to walk past it every so often for lunch. And every time I did, I was like, man, I live in a great country. I live in a great country. I love this. I love this. I hate that they have to keep putting up higher and higher fences to stop lefties from jumping over them, though. That's the crazy thing. They keep doing that. It used to be that you could walk right up to the White House. You could walk all the way up to the White House. When Teddy Roosevelt was in office, the Rough Riders would stop by the White House and they would rap on the windows to try to get the president to come out. That's how it used to be. That's when the country was a little bit safer and more trusting. Not anymore. No, there's a lot more chaotic thanks to the left. That's crazy. The president was outside yesterday, though, of course, as this all happened. He was standing with the construction workers who he loved. He commented at one point that it was costing him a lot of money just to have them standing with him because he was paying them by the hour to do the job. But he liked it. He liked having them there. And as he was standing there, he said, look, we're putting this thing up and cut 8 here. And when we do this, there's an E word involved in putting this thing up. I can't say it, but there's an E word that's involved. Take a look.
They call it a lifting. They also use another word, but I'm not going to use that word. You know what that is? The word, it starts with an E. You know what the word is? If I ever used it, I'd be run out of town by you people. All right, so enjoy it. Doug, you're going to get some good. He's going to win another Nobel Prize, I think, for this picture. So maybe the flag will be even more exciting, but this is pretty exciting.
What could he possibly be talking about? What could he possibly be talking about? An E word. Well, for that, let's turn to the Democrats who can't stop saying it. Cut 9. Here they are saying it over and over and over and over again. Yes. Not only did he incite the erection, he paid for 2 of them yesterday at the White House. Anyway, so I love the president here. With a clear sense of humor, the chat noticing that he continues to have a sense of humor. This is one of the reasons I love the guy. I don't know about you. We're never going to get another president like this. This is the truth. An insult comic becomes the president of the United States. And it's been great. I'm loving every second of it. And he does have his sense of humor in the midst of war, in the midst of what could be an American strike in Iran. He stays busy. He keeps it all going all at once. Biden couldn't get anything up. Biden couldn't get himself up out of bed each day. Meanwhile, the president able to celebrate America and then focus on what's next in Iran. Speaking of that, the president of the United States had a couple of things to say yesterday before the press about Iran. First and foremost, he said, Iran's so stupid. They are so stupid. They should have just made a deal. I gave them a 60-day window. They could have made a deal during that time frame, and they didn't. What a bunch of idiots. Take a look. Cut 5. Here's the president saying, they really missed their chance here.
Look, they should have made the deal. I had a great deal for them. They should have made that deal. 60 days, we talked about it, and in the end, they decided not to do it, and now they wish they did it. And they want to meet, but it's a little late to meet, but they want to meet, and they want to come to the White House. They'll even come to the White House, so we'll see. I may do that, but it's a shame it could have been done the easy way.
Now, that's a total break with the Washington Convention. You don't do that. You don't bring adversaries of the United States, the people that say death to America, to the White House for a meeting like that. But when is Trump and the guy who upholds Washington conventions? So the president met with Kim Jong-un on multiple occasions against the advice of Washington, saying, oh, you shouldn't do that. You can't do that. Don't legitimize him. What are you, crazy? The guy's got nuclear weapons. We've got to figure out a way to cool things down. And did President Trump do that? Well, yeah, hell yeah. He cooled things down with Kim Jong-un dramatically during his first term in office. That was a big deal. Now, did he solve the whole thing? No. But he brought the temperature down meaningfully. And this is President Trump's attitude on this subject. He's fine with talking to Vladimir Putin. He's fine with meeting with these guys. He has no problem whatsoever. If he can navigate towards a deal that's better for the United States, he's going to use unconventional approaches to do it when necessary. And in fact, President Trump's entire political career has been defined by unconventional approaches that have redounded to the benefit of the United States. So the idea of the Iranians sending one of their top officials or their top officials, so their supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, to the White House, that would be an historic event, a wild proportions. But the president's saying whatever it takes, if this actually comes to a deal where we can stop this nuclear program, that's the goal. The goal is stopping the nuclear program. I don't have all these other goals. I'm not trying to create a bunch of new wars. I don't want to get into a quagmire. All I want to do is fulfill the singular campaign promise that comes from my sincere belief that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. That's it. That's my goal. Now, notice the president is not sounding to you like George W. Bush right now. He's not going in and giving the we'll be greeted as liberator stuff. He's not saying we're going to build a democracy. He's not saying that we're going to try and build a whole new country or anything like that. This is entirely about nuclear weapons. Does that mean that we should take questions off the table about what comes next if the regime falls? Definitely not. Ask that question. I've been asking that question like crazy. And I've been super dissatisfied with the answers I've been receiving, including from people who are in positions of power who should know better. That this is a deep concern that we should have about what happens next in the Middle East. If that regime falls, if Israel, even if the United States isn't involved, if Israel is successful in knocking out the leader of Iran, what happens next? Totally reasonable question. And one that we expect more answers from out of our leaders. Give us sincere thought on that subject. And so far, we haven't seen much of that. But this idea of stopping the nukes, that's the president's goal. In fact, here he is talking about his definition of victory. Cut 7, the president saying, victory in Iran looks like this.
He said I was going back home to make a ceasefire. Not a ceasefire. We're long beyond ceasefire. And I said, why do you say that? Why would you say ceasefire? It's a bad term to use. Because a ceasefire means like everything's going swimmingly, we'll take a little time off. It's not. We're not looking for a ceasefire. We're looking for a total, complete victory. Again, you know what the victory is. No nuclear weapon.
Mr. President.
So I thought it was a very badly worded statement by him, and obviously I let him know that.
Yeah, he's talking about Emmanuel Macron, and they just came out of the G7 and this conversation about a ceasefire or whatever. That's not what he's talking about. He said that I'm not interested in ceasefire, because a ceasefire, you know, there's a synonym for a pause. A ceasefire is like let's pause, let's freeze everything exactly where it is right now. Trump doesn't want to freeze it. Trump wants to end it. Trump wants to resolve it. He wants an actual deal. And so even after we're after that 60-day window, Iran's taking it right now in the shorts because they're getting all of these missiles coming in. They're trying their best to fire back right now at Israel, although Israel's intercepting most of the incoming, thank God. And the president's saying, look, we could bring all of this to an end real quickly. Just get rid of the stupid nuclear program, which they clearly have. I don't know about you, but I have a lot of trust in not only President Trump, but J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance's post earlier this week I thought was really clarifying and really important. He said, look, the Iranians have definitely enriched uranium to cartoonish levels. They don't need it for civilian use. They're doing this for a weapon. And the mountain that the president is considering bombing using our B-2 bombers, dropping those bunker busters on, they built their nuclear lab under a mountain. Look, this is Dr. Evil stuff. If you build your nuclear lab underneath a mountain, the message you're sending is, yeah, I'm using it as a weapon. You know, it's the most obvious thing on the planet, and it's been obvious for a very long time. And boy, just in terms of the moral case against Iran, they've earned it. I mean, how many of our Americans have they killed? The 1983 barracks bombing, you go all the way back to that. You go back to taking hostages in the late 70s, American hostages. It's endless. It's just sort of been an endless string of this kind of awful treatment of the United States, condemnation for the country. That is definitely true in Iran's case. But the big questions are, how do we stop them from getting a nuke, and what happens after the regime falls? Those are the most important questions in the midst of all of this. Okay, so that's the president saying that's what victory looks like. Now, what about Fordow? What about that mountain? Do we drop, the United States uniquely equipped to send these B-2 bombers to blow up a mountain, which is one of the coolest things I've ever heard of. Here is the president saying, look, we might do it. Cut 6. We might do it. we might not do it. Take a look.
The destruction or the dismantling of the Fordow nuclear enrichment center, is that a prerequisite for a deal? Is that a red line for you?
No, it's just something that people talk about having. We're the only ones that have the capability to do it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to do it at all. Yeah, we have the best military equipment in the world. You see that with this fight. We have planes that are undetectable, flying around like, you know, nobody's able to see them stealth. You guys want to be stealthy tonight. You know, you can be stealth, you'll never lose, right? But these are incredible planes and weapons. We have the best weapons in the world, by far. Nobody close. And I mean, certain countries take advantage of that. Israel has incredible weaponry. So we'll see what happens. I've been asked about it by everybody, but I haven't made a decision.
I want you to think about why he's being so public on this. Come on, think about it. And normally, a military operation of this nature is the kind of thing that you would normally, again, keep top secret. You wouldn't reveal that you're seriously considering this. We wouldn't have all these details coming out. It'd be nothing like this. It'd be kept real quiet. If you were actually going to try and do this, and you knew you were going to do it, you were fully committed to it. You weren't just hanging it out there as a threat. You would just do it. You do it. You take it out. But that's not what Trump is doing. This is Trump. This is President Trump offering one final opportunity to Iran. Collapse this thing, guys. Collapse this thing. Get rid of it. You do that, we don't have to bomb the place. We don't have to do that. I don't even want to bring it to that point. So the president right now is still in the I may or may not do it phase. Now, there are a bunch of reports right now that the president has signed off on the basic attack, should it take place, that he's signed off on how the plan would go, but he has not yet green-lit the attack. Trump privately approves of attack plans for Iran, but has withheld the final order. That's the report right now from the Wall Street Journal. He's hoping that threatening to join Israel strikes is going to lead Tehran to abandon its nuclear program. President Trump told senior aides late Tuesday, the Journal reports, that he approved of attack plans for Iran, but was holding off on giving the final order to see if Tehran would abandon its nuclear program. 3 people familiar with these deliberations said. Since his private instructions in the White House Situation Room to the military, Trump has disclosed publicly that an attack is an option. Quote, I have ideas on what to do, but I haven't made a final. I'd like to make the final decision 1 second before it's due, he told reporters Wednesday. 1 second before it's due. Trump is hoping that threatening to join Israel strikes on Iran, which continued for a 6th day, will compel Tehran to meet his demands, the people said. He acknowledged that a U.S. attack was under consideration, but said he still might decide against it. So this gets right to the point I was just making, which is that the president wants Iran to know that at a moment's notice, a B-2 bomber, a stealth bomber, one of the coolest looking planes in the American military, will be flying over your country and will be dropping the biggest bombs well, close to the biggest bombs imaginable. These bunker busters are unreal, to blow up your mountain. So what would you like to do here? How would you like to handle this? Because at this point, you can't question our sincerity. That's off the table now. There's no question about how sincere President Trump is. So a final opportunity here for Tehran ahead of a big decision by the President of the United States. So again, we will see what happens with that. But the president saying victory here means no more nukes, no more nuclear weapons. The Department of Defense, of course, is going to have to play a role in all of this. And that brings us to our next subject, which is Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth testified before the United States Senate yesterday. And he has all of the swagger of all of our favorite Trump officials this time. I love it. Smacking Democrats around. I've got the updates on that coming up. You wait until you see. Crazy Mazie Hirono gets into the mix, of course, which is wonderful. So Pete Hegseth, you know, as he said, what did Pete Hegseth say? What was the phrase that he used? Does anyone know? Justin, that was a call. That was a call for a cut. A specific little sounder. I know you're ready for a live read. I just want this little tease, though. What does Pete Hegseth say? What is he done with?
We're done with that shit.
Thank you. There you go. That's our clumsy attempt to play that on a rapid fire basis. All right, more ahead on Vince. We'll get to that in just a moment. We have to thank our sponsors. I know. We're thanking our sponsors right now that pay Justin's salary to miss my cues. Quote, it said that 4 companies control over 80% of the U.S. meat industry, and reports say that China controls the largest portion of U.S. pork. Well, that's true. Not just reports saying it. It's absolutely true. And these companies are using tactics to crush American family farms with the additives that they're putting into our food. Americans are stuck with sketchy meat. So what can we do about all of this? Well, let me tell you about a company that's coming up swinging on behalf of American family farms and your family's food security. That's Moink. Moink's meat comes from animals who are raised outdoors, and they deliver meat straight to your doorstep at prices you can actually afford. Born, raised, harvested, all right here in the United States of America. You know, Moink sent me some of their great meat. It is so good, from the bacon to the steaks to the burgers. This is top-notch, primo stuff. It tastes delicious. And I thought to myself, where's this been all my life? I'm so glad I've got Moink. You will love Moink as well. It's fantastic. Support American family farms. Join the Moink movement today at moinkbox.com/Vince. Right now, you can get free wings for life. Now, they're the best wings you're ever going to taste for free, but for only a limited time. So it's spelled M-O-I-N-K. That's moinkbox.com/Vince. That's moinkbox.com/Vince. Moink. Thank you to Moink. Okay. So let me see here. I've got Pete Hegseth yesterday testifying before the United States Senate, which is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this. And as he started yesterday, he was kind of giving his basic assessment of how everything is going, the military's involvement, including on the deportation operation. And as he was doing that, MSNBC was so furious that Pete Hegseth was telling the truth about our deportations and how successful they are. They straight up cut him off. They tried to stop him from telling people how great things are. Here's cut 1, Pete Hegseth giving us the good news, and MSNBC cutting him off.
Credible deterrence, it starts at home, and it starts with securing our borders. As was mentioned by the chairman, we are working to achieve 100% operational control of the border. Illegal crossings have decreased 99.9%, and it was just reported today.
Love it.
That CBP released 0 illegals into the U.S. last month.
Huge.
Down from 62,000 released into the interior.
Secretary of Defense Hegseth talking about the Pentagon's budget there on the right
No, he's
side
not.
of the screen. On the left,
No,
there's
right
President
now.
Trump,
Wait a
who just
second.
stepped out of the White House, constructing some very towering flags
So
on the north and
MSNBC
south.
MSNBC dives in front of Pete Hegseth to stop him from telling you more about their success on the border, and the military is involved there. The military clearly involved there, supporting that mission, locking down that border, and getting us to those epic numbers of 0 people for the entire month of May released into the United States. That's a dramatic change. That was 60,000 last year, May of last year, by the Biden administration. 60,000 illegals just released, dumped right into the country. 0 now. 0. The numbers on the border are completely epic, which is why, in general, you're not going to hear about them very much because the media is no interest in talking about success. And it also demonstrates that Biden was lying to you the whole time when he said that the border's only open because of Donald Trump. What? He's not even president of the United States at the time Biden said that. What are you even talking about? You opened the border and you trafficked everybody in. It's not a mistake. It was intentional. Border locked down. Media not interested in talking about it. You saw it yesterday. Pete Hegseth continued here yesterday. There was a loony Democrat senator from Michigan by the name of Elisa Slotkin who started asking Pete Hegseth, those troops that are on the border mission, the troops that are being deployed to places like L.A. for the riots, are they going to start shooting everyone? Are they going to kill protesters? Asks Elisa Slotkin. She was ridiculous. And here's Pete Hegseth's exchange with her. Take a look.
Given the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh. Like the whole country. And by the way,
stupid.
My colleagues across the aisle.
What is that based on? What evidence would you have that an order like that has ever been given?
Giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said, I'm not going to send in the uniformed military to do something that I know in my gut isn't right. He was asked to shoot at their legs. He wrote that in his book. That's not hearsay. So your poo-pooing of this, it just shows you don't understand who we are as a country. who we are. And all of my colleagues across the aisle, especially the ones that served, should want an apolitical military and not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life, so I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order? Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh, my God.
Good for him. And she's like complaining. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you would say that. Did you hear what she said in that? She said somebody wrote a book and said that Trump wanted the military to shoot the protesters. And so therefore it's not hearsay. That was her claim. That's literally hearsay. If I tell you what someone else said, that is hearsay. She's not even making any sense whatsoever. And I love that Pete Hegseth is just laughing her off. Like, you're just ridiculous. What is wrong with you? The media, the Democrats and the media, they are desperate. They are very desperate for the military to shoot an American civilian who doesn't deserve it. They want that outcome so badly. Because they want to make the case that Trump's some sort of tyrant. And because he's not, they have to keep assaulting police officers so they can get pictures of themselves in handcuffs. It's so crazy. So there's Alyssa Slotkin being as nutty as ever. Speaking of nutty, few are nuttier, maybe no one's nuttier than crazy Mazie Hirono, who was trying to filibuster her own questioning during Pete Hegseth's testimony yesterday. Here's cut 3, crazy Mazie. Look.
Secretary Hegseth, you've had a tough start. At your confirmation hearing, my Democratic colleagues and I rightly questioned whether you had the requisite qualifications and experience to lead the DOD, the largest federal agency, especially given your checkered past, which included paying $50,000 in hush money to settle a sexual assault allegation against you and driving 2 veterans organizations into the ground. After only months on the job, our concerns about you have proven true, as far as I'm concerned. Instead of strengthening national security, you've turned the Pentagon into a dysfunctional mess. You are jeopardizing military operations and service members' lives with your unprecedented action of texting classified military plans to anyone who might stroke your ego.
Yeah. So she just spent the whole time yammering because that's what she's conditioned to do. So there she is. She just filibustered the whole time, and Pete Hegseth didn't have a chance to get a word in edgewise because Crazy Mazie wouldn't shut up. So that was the feature of their non-existent exchange yesterday. And then there's this one, which I really adored. Democrat Nevada Senator Jackie Rosen was yammering on and on and on and on. And Pete Hegseth had to point out, hey, your time is up. This is the witness telling the senator, sorry, you ran out of time, lady. And she did. And boy, she got ticked off when he said this. Take a look, cut 4.
It's no longer there.
So do you believe it's appropriate for any social media personality to influence personnel decisions in your department? Yes or no?
I believe your time is up, Senator.
Oh, it is not up to you to tell me when my time is up.
Well, the time
and I am going to say, Mr. Secretary, you're either feckless or complicit. You're not in control of your department. You're unserious. It is shocking. You're not combating anti-Semitism within your ranks. It's a dangerous and pivotal time in our nation's history. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back. And I don't appreciate the smirk, sir. You are the Secretary of Defense.
Hilarious. Look at the emotionally incontinent rage on that United States Senator. Don't you tell me my time is up. I'm just stating the fact, lady.
We're done with that.
You don't have to like me smirk, but we are done with that shit. Yes. Thank you. Good timing, Justin. I appreciate that. All right. In just a moment, I want to talk to you about an important report on election rigging and what the FBI has just revealed. You know the details. We talked about some of this earlier this week, but I want to bring in our expert guest, HANS VON SPAKOVSKY, in just a moment. Super important revelations this week that deserve a lot more attention. You know, as far as the sponsors of this program, who make all of this possible, I got to thank Bone Charge today. That's right, Bone Charge. Their infrared sauna blanket's awesome. I love this thing. It's a sauna at home. It's a blanket. I wrap it around myself, and I get the muscle recovery, the detoxification, the relaxation that you get from a sauna, again, right inside my house, the comfort of this awesome blanket. It's a total game changer. It helps me immensely. And my wife uses the Bone Charge red light face mask. She uses it every single night. She adores it. It's good for improving your skin's texture and reducing inflammation, and it gives you fantastic results. It's like having a mini spa treatment right at home. Now, if you're thinking about trying these excellent, excellent products out, you're in luck. You can do what I did. Head to bonecharge.com. Go to bonecharge.com, use the code Vince at checkout, and you'll get 15% off. Both of these products have made a huge impact on us in our home, in our wellness routine. I'm sure you're going to love them too. Use the code Vince at bonecharge.com and you'll save 15%. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. Bonecharge.com, BONcharge.com, promo code Vince. Also, Blackout Coffee, baby. We got that Blackout Coffee in the cup today. Love Blackout Coffee. They're a great sponsor of this program. John is a great American who started a great company called Blackout Coffee. He built it from the ground up. He doesn't compromise on quality or values. This is America First coffee. It's roasted fresh right here in the United States. There's no woke nonsense, just bold, strong coffee for people who actually get stuff done. And as you know, Blackout Coffee is the official coffee of everybody here at Silverlock. So you know this is a brand that stands for the right values. And big deal to me is not just that it stands for the right values, it's a great cup of coffee. That's the key for me. I drink black coffee. I love Blackout Coffee. It's the best. Here's the deal. John is hooking you up. You can head over to blackoutcoffee.com/Vince. Use the code Vince, that's VINCE, and you're going to get 20% off your first order. Easy peasy. Whether you like whole bean, ground, or even instant coffee that doesn't suck, Blackout Coffee has you covered. Support a company that actually shares your values. Blackoutcoffee.com/Vince. Use the code Vince, and you get 20% off your first order. How's that for a great cup of coffee? Blackout Coffee. Love it. Thank you, Blackout Coffee, for making all this possible. All right, let me dive into the revelations now that the FBI this week has produced to Congress evidence of a Chinese plot to help create mail-in ballots, fake mail-in ballots in the United States. And they did this in 2020, fake IDs, the whole shebang. Let's get into it now with HANS VON SPAKOVSKY, elections expert who I always rely on for all the information here. Hans, great to have you with us today, sir.
Vince, thanks for having me on.
It is nice to talk to you again. Okay, so the FBI just handed over all of this information about how the Chinese were mass producing fake U.S. driver's licenses, which were to be used as identification to secure mail-in ballots to help, of course, rig the results of the election, to influence the election with fraudulent ballots. How big of a story is this in your view?
It's like a screenwriter's plot out of Hollywood. I mean, this is just shocking. What's even worse is that the FBI apparently sent out this report. They had a confidential informant telling them about this. They sent it out in the summer of 2020, but then all of a sudden, the FBI sends out another notice to various intelligence agencies and others saying, well, this is uncorroborated, so destroy the report. They didn't say withdraw it. They wanted everyone to destroy all these copies of it. And apparently, they then did absolutely nothing to investigate it. And the thing is, we now know, according to this latest report, that yeah, they had a confidential informant telling them about it, but then it turns out that in the summer and July, U.S. Customs actually discovered almost 20,000 fake U.S. driver's licenses that had been apparently produced in Hong Kong and China, which was, Vince, that's pretty clear corroboration.
Yes, it is.
Of what's going on. And apparently these were headed towards battleground states. So I just can't believe they didn't investigate this further.
So wait, but what you just described is way more corroboration than any claim about Donald Trump colluding with Russians to steal the 2016 election. And yet allegations about the president being compromised were featured as a mainstay in the American media, constant leaks coming out of the government. There's an investigation going on here about the Russians interfering to get Hillary Clinton elected. This was a feature of the election in 2016. It was totally fraudulent, we now know, having gone over it a million times.
Right.
And yet what you just described sounds entirely credible, entirely corroborated, and we didn't hear a peep about this during the 2020 election.
No, we didn't. And in fact, we should add that there was now a whistleblower too, a guy named Christopher Porter. He was high up in the national intelligence circles. He was actually the officer in charge of cyber, which meant looking at any attempts to interfere with the election. He says that when he raised issues about this and the fact that this wasn't being investigated, he was fired. So it's look, all the evidence is that this was suppressed. The FBI, the folks in the White House, in the National Intelligence Office, they did not want any information about this to get out, and moreover, they didn't want to investigate it.
I should point out, if you didn't already say this, but the point of this was to help Joe Biden. The point of this was to help Biden be elected. Now, Biden, unlike Trump, was taking money from the country in question. The Biden family was taking millions upon millions of dollars from China in the lead up to all of this. So, Hans, that suggests to me, you're a lawyer, you've worked in the Justice Department, you're very familiar with all of this. That strikes me as we're beginning to stitch together a very meaningful pattern that requires a genuine investigation, a criminal one.
Oh, yes. No, that is absolutely true. And not only an investigation to look at what exactly was happening in this, but frankly, there needs to be an internal investigation of the FBI to find the individuals who suppressed this and tried to make sure an investigation did not occur. By the way, we should mention the idea here of these fake driver's licenses of the Chinese Communist Party was to get Chinese students and Chinese nationals sympathetic to China to be able to use those IDs to then vote, even though they were not U.S. citizens.
How easy is it to do that? How easy would it be for someone in that time frame, especially in 2020? How easy would it be, like in the midst of all the COVID chaos and the way people were voting, to take a fraudulent ID and then use it in order to secure a ballot and then vote with it and never be caught?
Extremely easy, and your chances of getting caught are almost totally nil. And one of the biggest reasons for that, Vince, as you know, is that states have not and have never been in the process of actually verifying the citizenship of folks who register to vote. They just take your word for it. So they would not have been checking to make sure people were citizens. That's something actually this administration has been trying to change.
Yes.
The executive order, the president issued an executive order in March on election integrity, and one of the parts of that directed the Department of Homeland Security and the State Department to finally make their databases available to state election officials so they can start doing that, verifying the citizenship of people who are registered to vote.
And this is also the point of the SAVE Act in Congress, which is that would require anyone who registers to vote has to demonstrate their citizenship at the time of their registration, right?
That is correct. And that is something that needs to be done and isn't any different and not any harder than people having to show an ID when they vote. But as you know, blue states, the heads of the Democratic Party are very much against any kind of verification like that. And so we have two of the biggest states in the country, New York, California, where you don't have to show an ID to vote, and they absolutely fight any attempt to force them to verify citizenship of people who are registering to vote.
And obviously the reason for that is entirely out of political expedience. There's no underlying principle for that. The reason you fight for that is either you know that there are fraudulent votes supporting your party, or you strongly suspect that there are and you don't want to do anything to impede them.
No, that's right. In fact, listen, the Babylon Bee had a great headline just a week or so ago, talking about Governor Newsom in California and the way he's been trying to protect the rioters out there, saying, in essence, the Governor Newsom was acting to protect all the illegal aliens who had voted to put him into office.
Yes. Yeah, it's crystal clear what they're doing. Actually, on the voter ID thing, let's just take a tangent for a moment. It is interesting that voter ID is very widely accepted now as a meaningful way by everybody, but as a meaningful way to assess, whether or not you should be voting at all. Like everybody supports it. The left likes to say that black voters don't support voter ID. They do by crazy wide margins. It's amazing. The other piece here is among people who are actually American citizens who are not registered to vote, there are huge numbers. In fact, some results, some surveys find a majority of them are actually Trump supporters. To the point that now the left is not all that interested in voter registration drives anymore. Like in the last election, the last thing they wanted to do was register new voters because they were scared too many of too legitimate voters would vote for Trump.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, all you have to do is look at the surveys and polling that's been done to see that Donald Trump, increased his share of votes in all of these constituent groups that in the past Democrats have looked on as a sure thing to vote for them.
Big time. Okay, so I know that you and I have discussed before efforts in various states, including like Texas and Georgia, to improve the quality of their election system to make them more credible and believable. What is the general trend right now in terms of election security? Because the president, he wins that 2024 election. He wins it as he makes that commitment that we're going to make it too big to rig. And certainly, to his great credit, he wins all the swing states. He proves decisively, no question whatsoever, that he was able to dominate that thing. What's the picture look like? How are things changing and what else needs to happen?
Actually, in many, many states, things have improved greatly since 2020. And the reason for that was that, look, you know this. I've been working on trying to convince state legislators to put in reforms for a very long time. And for a long time, they just weren't much interested in it. Their attitude was, well, I got elected, so there must not be a problem.
Right.
The one good thing that came out of the 2020 election is a lot of state legislators finally realized there were holes in the system that needed to be fixed. So you had all these reforms passed in states, Arkansas, Tennessee, Georgia, Texas, state after state, so that now for example, about 2/3 of the states actually now require an ID to vote. And they've been putting in other security measures also, stuff that we've been preaching about for years that they were never interested in. You still have bad places, New York and California, as I mentioned, being two of the worst. But overall, things have vastly improved in many states.
I know everyone's in the midst of making the transition to the real ID. That is, that the federal government places its stamp on. Will that change the dynamics here? The use of real ID to ensure the integrity of the vote?
Yes, it will. It'll help improve it. The other thing that some states have started doing, which they ought to do, is change their driver's license laws. It's very easy. It should say in big letters on every driver's license, if you are not a U.S. citizen, it needs to say that on the driver's license. That's not only important for voting, but for the many other things that driver's licenses are used for when it comes to an ID.
Yes, because one of the, when it comes to illegal aliens voting in the United States, or for that matter, legal immigrants to the United States illegally voting in our elections, as I understand it, the law requires that you are knowingly violating the law when you vote. Is that right? Like you have some consciousness of guilt that you're doing it. So the defense that a legal immigrant could theoretically make is, oh, I had no idea I wasn't allowed to vote in the election. That was a mistake on my part. And then the law wouldn't be able to touch that person. But what you're kind of describing is creating the conditions whereby there is no mistake. Your ID should say not a citizen. And then when you go to a polling place, they should have signage up that says non-citizens are not allowed to vote in this election, making it really clear to each person who's standing in line that they're about to violate the law if they do.
No, that's right. And something else, look, we've seen the last 3 months is we've seen U.S. attorneys in different places across the country finally filing prosecutions against aliens who they have found voting. Prior administration refused to do that.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate. Okay, so back to China for a moment. You mentioned you were talking about all of these, obviously fake IDs, Chinese nationals in the country, the Bidens taking all this Chinese money. One of the features of the Biden administration were that tens of thousands of Chinese nationals came across our southern border. Tens of thousands of them. And we've never gotten a meaningful accounting for that other than just having a sort of a generic head count of this. And why that would even be necessary. Why would China send people across our southern border? What's that all about? What role do you think that plays in this conversation?
Look, China declared a long time ago that they were at war with us. Yeah, it's not a hot war, but they've been doing everything they can to undermine our culture and society. Everything from supplying almost all the fentanyl that is pouring into the country to now apparently having tried to make sure that Joe Biden won the 2020 election. And the more Chinese nationals that are loyal to them they can get in the country, the more mischief they can cause everywhere, not just culturally, but in our elections and in many other areas. And I think that was part of their long-term plans.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and then finally, what are the prospects of things like the SAVE Act being passed as you stare at that and becoming law and our ability to protect these elections?
Well, it passed the House. It's now in the U.S. Senate. Whether Senator Thune can get it past a filibuster, as you know, that is questionable. I think it's important that he do that while he's trying to get that done. Fortunately, as I said, the president, through his executive order, is trying to get executive agencies like the Department of Homeland Security involved in helping to resolve some of these problems.
Yes, indeed. And then finally, on the Supreme Court going to take up any of this? I know one of the big things that they're tackling right now is whether or not these district judges can shut down the president all across the country, these nationwide injunctions.
Right.
But as the president requires these protections on elections, will we prevail in the courts?
Yeah, I actually think we will prevail. The Supreme Court in the last month or so has been more and more frequently issuing emergency stays of lower court decisions. And I think that's a sign that they are also getting tired of this misbehavior by the lower courts. And I hope they are going to act before the end of the term even more forcefully to try to stop this.
Me too. All right. Well, Hans von Spakovsky, thank you for being vigilant to the condition of our elections. You've always been so good at all of this. And the reason that they're improving is because of your contribution. Thank you. Really good to talk to you today.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
That's the great Hans von Spakovsky. He's over at the Heritage Foundation, and he's been all over this for years. Just making sure to tackle our elections. And, you think about the election improvements that have been made in places like Georgia. Remember what the left said about this? Remember Joe Biden in his own demented way was like, oh, Georgia's election law makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. What? First of all, what are you even talking about? And of course, what they were trying to do was they were trying to scare the hell out of black voters in Georgia into thinking that some sort of racial injustice was occurring by demanding integrity in our elections. But do you know what happened in Georgia? Do you know what actually happened for black voters in Georgia? They went up. Black voters had more access and were more represented in every subsequent election in Georgia thanks to the election integrity law. And they had fewer black votes thrown out in Georgia. You know what their system was? They had when they're mail-in ballots, they had a signature verification system, a signature verification. And so what would happen was people would submit a ballot, and then some random election worker would stare at the signature, like as if they were a handwriting expert, and say, oh, that doesn't match the signature we have on file. And they would throw out the ballot. They would disqualify the ballot because the signature didn't match. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, when I first started signing documents at the age of 18 or whatever, my signature looks nothing like it did when I was first putting a handwritten signature down, learning how to sign paperwork for the first time. So if you tried to match up my signature now just visually, you'd be like, that doesn't look the same at all. Of course it doesn't, because it changes over time. What kind of system is that? And so black voters were often having, at actually disproportionate levels, their votes were being rejected under the old system in Georgia. You know what they replaced it with? They replaced it with voter ID. They said, you need an ID to vote. And if you can submit a mail-in ballot, you have to write your driver's license number down on it. You have to prove your state ID number. You got to write it on the ballot. The net effect of that was that fewer votes were being disqualified and more legitimate votes were being counted. What more could you ask for? Black voter representation went up. So the left, as they so often do, fear-mongered about something, and it turned out they were completely lying about the subject, and they deserve all of the shame and scorn that we can possibly heap upon them for their terrible behavior. And congratulations to the people of Georgia for having a more secure vote. That's what we need. It's like, you know, this stuff is straightforward. Voter ID, anybody with 2 brain cells to rub together is for that. Voter ID, where everybody's for it. All right, so there you go. Okay, we've got. Oh, speaking of legal victories, this is what I want to hit with you today too. Is we had a huge win in the United States Supreme Court yesterday against child abuse. Now, the left is furious about this because they love child abuse. Take a look at this. Here we go. Supreme Court greenlights Tennessee's ban on sex change procedures for kids. This is the Daily Caller reporting on it. The Supreme Court upheld Tennessee's law banning child sex change procedures on Wednesday. You can't actually change someone's sex, just to be crystal clear. You're not changing someone's sex. These are cosmetic mutilations being done to kids. In a 6-3 ruling, the court held that Tennessee's law does not violate the Equal Protection Clause, the 14th Amendment. Quote, this case carries with it the weight of fierce scientific and policy debates about the safety, efficacy, and propriety of medical treatments in an evolving field, said Chief Justice John Roberts in the majority opinion. Let me pause on that for a moment. An evolving field. It's not an evolving field. It's a devolving field, the medical industry. Things are a complete disaster. If you're getting to the point where you're justifying the mutilation of children and calling that something virtuous, your industry's collapsing. It is disgraceful that this is happening. So I appreciate that Justice Roberts came out on the right side of this in a 6-3 ruling. I don't like this stuff about, oh, it's an evolving field. No, it's not an evolving. It's devolving. You are straying away from healthcare. The Hippocratic Oath is do no harm. And you have an entire industry that's committed to harm of these kids. The voices in these debates raised sincere concerns, Roberts continued. The implications for all are profound. The Equal Protection Clause does not resolve these disagreements. Yeah, because the whole point of the Equal Protection Clause is to protect you from invidious discrimination on the basis of something you're born with. You can't be discriminated against on the basis of your race or your sex or your religion. But claiming that you were born in the wrong body is not a matter of the 14th Amendment or the Equal Protection Clause. It's a mental illness. And it's being exacerbated by the left that's endorsing it. What we should be doing are interventions. You should be demonstrating actual human empathy. Instead, what the left has done is they've abandoned people who are in mental distress. They've accelerated their decline, and they're profiting off of their downfall. The left is pushing human beings into an industry that will mutilate them and then take whatever money they might have for as long as they live and driving them into deeper despair. It is as disgusting a thing as we can possibly have this century, ranked up there with just the genocide of children that we call abortion. It's disgraceful. And by the way, speaking of the link between those two things, Planned Parenthood is both the biggest biggest perpetrator of killing babies in the womb. And if you make it out of the womb, they'll scramble that kid's brain later by pumping them full of hormones. The Planned Parenthood is the single biggest provider of these cross-sex hormones in the United States. Because I guess they're running out of babies to kill. So they've moved into the next demented industry. That's really going on. Justin asked if I saw the J.D. Vance saga on Blue Sky about this. Yeah, I love the J.D. Vance saga on Blue Sky. You've got it? Oh, here it is. Okay, so J.D. Vance reads the ruling. He adores it. And here he is. He decides to take screen grabs from the rulings, from the opinions here, and he posts them to what I've referred to affectionately as Bluesky. Bluesky is where all the lefties disappear. So after they quit X in a huff, I don't like free speech, they run off to something called Blue Sky. And when they get there, they just rage to each other about how much they hate America. And so normally it's not a place that most conservatives dip into, because it's like, why even waste your time? It's just, you know, you want to shout at the sky, go for it. But I don't want to be around a bunch of people who are just screaming at the sky the whole time. Well, the blue sky. So J.D. Vance jumped in yesterday and shared screen grabs from the opinion and Justice Thomas's amazing concurrence. Justice Thomas, who is a gift from God to the United States Supreme Court, he whipped out an amazing concurring opinion yesterday, characteristically so. And he actually, in his assessment, he just destroyed what he referred to as the self-described experts who are abusing all these kids. So JD posts on Blue Sky, and he said, you know, I found Justice Thomas's concurrence on medical care for transgender youth quite illuminating. He argues that many of our so-called experts have used bad arguments and substandard science to push experimental therapies on our youth. I might add that many of those scientists are receiving substantial resources from Big Pharma to push these medicines on kids. What do you think? Asked J.D. Vance. You know what happened to him? Yeah, they banned him in a quarter of an hour. In under 15 minutes, the vice president of the United States was banished from Bluesky. Banished. We can't have J.D. here. We can't have J.D. here. And all these people think they're so smart. They're also full of themselves. J.D. Vance is genuinely smart. He gets in there and he goes, okay, how about this? I'm going to appeal to your supposed values here where you claim that you want to go after the big companies, the millionaires and the billionaires. Really? What about Big Pharma? What's your opinion on Big Pharma? How about that, J.D. Vance asks. You want to go after a corrupt industry, making a lot of money by exploiting people, taking advantage of them? I thought that was your whole deal, J.D. Vance says. They banished him in 15 seconds. They want him out of there. Why do they want him out of there? Because they're not for free speech. A countervailing viewpoint that demonstrates that your entire worldview is a complete fraud? No, we can't have that. Let's continue to bury our heads in the sand. Let's not allow J.D. Vance in here, banishing him. How perfect. How perfect. Both it's predictable and totally indicative of the behavior of the American left. The last thing they want is a debate because they know they'll lose. They know they'll lose. I adore Clarence Thomas. Thank you to Clarence Thomas for writing that great opinion yesterday. And congratulations, by the way, to Matt Walsh and all of the people who've fought so hard for what happened in Tennessee, where they get this law passed to banish these child mutilation practices. Matt Walsh rightly taking a victory lap on the subject. Congratulations to Matt Walsh, just doing a great job. Has fought fought a difficult fight, but on behalf of these kids, and that is the empathetic position. Thank you for that. I want to thank you again for being with me here on another episode of Vince. You are the best damn audience in media. I love having you here. If you've watched it live, that's rumble.com/Vince. You can listen to it on the podcast. And also, we've always got more content coming out because I've got the national radio show each and every day. That's 12 to 3 Eastern time. You can watch that at rumble.com/Vince or just go to thevinceshow.com and find your local station. Appreciate your listening wherever you find us. Coming up next on the Mighty Rumble, we've got Steven Crowder. I'm super grateful for you today. We'll be back with you again tomorrow.
We're done with that shit.